Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Punting Pioneer. I'm Corbin Hosler, and this is Taking Turns in Modern. I want to give credit to Bowman 2 is how they had their name with this deck. Ran into them a couple weeks ago in the queues here on Magic Online playing Pioneer, and they had a spicy Taking Turns list. And so I've taken their deck, I've worked with it a little bit. We've got some stuff we're going to try out today, but this is the plan. We are going to take some extra turns in Pioneer. All thanks to Alrund's Epiphany. You can foretell it, and then for 6 mana, you time Squawk. You get an extra turn and some birds. Other turns in the deck include Part the Waterveil. You remember this one. Makes a 6/6 for 9 mana. It can be your win condition. Temporal Trespass. Secretly maybe one of the best ones in the deck. Costs just 3 mana when you really need it to sometimes. It can come in really, really handy. A couple Karn Temporal Sunderings here. This one's a little more restricted to cast, but it is very good. So you can see, everybody, we're going to take some turns. With those turns, we're going to try to ultimate a Teferi Master of Time. This is great. It protects you. You can activate it a lot. You get 2 extra turns if you get ultimate it. It does a ton for the deck. Engulf the Shore protects you. Return to their owner's hands all creatures with toughness less than or equal to the number of islands you control. Well, good news. We have 22 islands in our deck of 24 cards. Only the Castle Vantresses are not. But the Mystic Sanctuaries are. So this is a pretty good one here. Put target instant or sorcery back on top of our deck. That is pretty good for comboing. So that's sort of the crux of the deck, right? We're going to take these extra turns. We're going to use the Shark Typhoons and the Dictate of Kruphixes to draw extra cards. This one, of course, being really, really key to the deck. But you know what? Teferi also can kind of serve that role with at least with the filtering. Now, Censor in here gives us, this is an addition I made, it gives us a 2-drop that can actually interact with the board in a meaningful way against any deck, and it cycles for 1, so it's a pretty solid draw when you're trying to combo off. I even threw in a Behold the Multiverse in here, gives us another 2-drop. So you can see this deck is pretty slow, pretty heavy, but it's got Engulf the Shore to catch up. It's got Censors to try to keep things going, and it's got some Foretell cards you can put into Foretell zone on turn 2. He gave you something to do. And of course, we have Shark Typhoon. You can also cycle for 2 mana if you want. And of course, sometimes it just makes a giant shark to win the game. So everybody, we're going to take some turns in Pioneer, and I'm very excited about it. In the sideboard, we've got what you'd expect. Some Mystical Disputes, some Negates, some Essence Captures, more ways to interact on turn 2. And Soul Guide Lantern for the graveyard decks. And this is something I'm going to try out here. The Awoken Horror Thing in the Ice. We've got 3 of them here, and we have a lot of turn spells. Not a ton of cheap instants and sorceries, but hey, this thing blocks pretty decently on turn 2, and after our opponents have boarded out their removal, it is at least a threat with a couple instants and sorceries, of which our deck has a number of them. So, also, by the way, if you're able to flip it, it won't necessarily come back with Engulf the Shore. So, everybody, that is it. We're going to take some turns here on Punting Pioneer, and I couldn't be more excited about it. I really pushed this deck back in the day. I spent a lot of time on this build in Modern. Really got it where I wanted it. And then when I was doing coverage for WotC back when we had paper tournaments, before we moved everything online, I made sure to feature this deck as much as I could at GPs, including Daniel Wong's top 8 performance with taking turns in Pioneer at GP Vegas a couple years ago. So really excited to share this one with you all. Shout out to Bowman 2 for putting us onto this list. Let's get right to the games. I can't wait. All right, taking turns time, and I think this is a keeper. We're on the draw, but we haven't engulfed the shore. We have 3 islands. We have a turn 2 play. We actually have a curve here, right? We have a turn 2 Behold the Multiverse Foretell, turn 3 Narset, turn 4 Engulf the Shore. So we'll see how it goes for my opponent, who has mulliganed. So this seems like a keeper to me, right? This seems like a pretty decent start. Our opponent leading off on a Drowned Catacomb. I don't know what quite to make of that. Seems like the Narset might be pretty good. Don't know if we'll be able to resolve it, but having the Narset in hand, I like against a Drowned Catacomb deck. Maybe. I mean, we'll see. I see something like that, I assume, a blue-black control type thing. Looks like it's going to be some kind of Super Friends list, and we're going to get Thoughtseized. So, okay. Thoughtseize is going to take the Narset, I assume, here, but this seems somewhat beatable so far. If our opponent is able to piece together what we're playing from that hand, I don't know if they will. I don't think this is truly a rogue archetype here in the format. It is not a deck at all. Oh my gosh. Pretty good. I'm actually going to foretell this one in case we get Thoughtseized again. And maybe that's wrong, but look, our opponent's not putting pressure on us here on turn 3. I'd like to get the foretell turn into the extra zones pile. So, all right, here comes the first planeswalker. Oh my, a Narset of their own. Well, that might be a problem. I will not lie to you. It might not be the end of the world, though. I mean, look, we don't have to draw extra cards, and we're actually fine drawing one a turn. You know, although it would be nice to draw extra cards. Okay. Well, we've still got we've got some stuff working here. All right, how do I tell which of these? Okay, cool. Not foretold on Magic Online much before. Well, next turn we can play Teferi, and hope that that resolves. We can loot on their turn. I mean, just resolving a Planeswalker against them is going to be key here. In Dove Hand of Control, honestly, maybe something that should be in our deck. It's a nice card. Gosh, artifact, instant, and sorcery is your opponent. We're getting fully locked out here, I guess. And planeswalkers? No. All right, I can resolve my Teferi. Now, the only problem, I guess we can loot here. The problem with resolving the Teferi is that draw discarding, when I can't draw an extra card thanks to the Narset, is not necessarily that great. But in this case, I think it's fine throwing away an Engulf the Shore. That probably won't matter, simply to get something down, right? To start ticking it up, have some kind of threat going on here. Our opponent's going to cast, say, Casmina, Enigmatic Mentor. Okay. Well, this one does make tokens. So that said, we have the Engulf the Shore here. We even have the Teferi phase. I mean, we're gonna give it a shot. And the big question for us is the turn we cast this, right? If we get to resolve this thing and get our tokens, we'll actually be able to poke down the Narset. Well, let's see what we find. I don't think that I need the Waterveil here. I think I just want lands, and I want a way to get rid of this thing. Okay, seems reasonable. What do I want to do with this? I'm pretty happy with my hand as is, so I'm just gonna let Teferi go, I guess. But in reality, all that's really going to matter on this turn is whether my opponent taps out or whether they have counter. Oh, you know what? That's not true. This thing's going to tax our spells. I forgot about that. Okay, that's fine. Our opponent's looting through. They're going to put a Tyrant Scorn into there. So now we have the Engulf the Shore, which we're going to go ahead and fire off right now. To get rid of these wizard tokens. Might work out fine. Our opponent has 2 cards in hand. They now, in theory, if this resolves, don't have any creatures. And we still have a Teferi that we get to mess with. And we're 2 lands away, but yeah, heck, only 2 lands away with one of them in hand from casting our Alrund's Epiphany, which I think will give us a good chance to actually win the game. We'll see. Big whiff on the Thoughtseize. We can also use Teferi to try to answer any other threats that come out here. So the fact that they probably looted into that Thoughtseize, meaning that they activated Kumina before attacks, or Casmina, is pretty good for us. Although, look at that. The Elder spell. To put... Okay. I could only phase out creatures? Weird. I mean, I guess I'm happy with my island, but the Elder Spell's going to get it. And, oh, I see. They actually killed their own Casmina so that they could get a counter onto the Narset, 2 counters per creature, Planeswalker destroyed. So 4 to reload it. That was a cheeky little play. But here's a pretty good one for us. Artifact, instants, and sorceries. Okay. I could hardcast a Shark Typhoon. But I think I would rather pass the turn back, and just cycle this thing. We will get a 4/4 out of it. That should hopefully be enough to take care of Narset. And we'll see what happens. See what if we hit a land, we get to cast the Alrund's Epiphany, of course. And in some other world, I guess we could, cast Behold the Multiverse, which I don't want to do. I did consider hard casting that Shark Typhoon, because then if we hit land, we just start making giant tokens. That seems problematic. But that said, their deck it seems to be heavy on Planeswalkers. Oh my gosh, a Nicol Bolas Dragon God. Well, things might be starting to go a little worse here. I was going to say, they seem to be so heavy on their Planeswalkers that there's not really going to be a negate or what have you in there. Now, this seems problematic. This is going to unfortunately change our game plan in a big way. But we'll see. I guess it kind of depends on what we cycle into as well. Wait a minute. I don't want to do any of this, do I? Because we're in their first main phase, and they haven't activated the... They haven't activated the Dovin, so I think I have to let this happen and just give up an island. Otherwise, the Dovin gets us. Alright, well, we'll cycle it for a slightly smaller Shark token and see what we hit. Alright, Mystic Sanctuary, I like that. I like Narset Waterveils as well. Many options here. Unfortunately, I can't get rid of the Dovin. And I can't get rid of the Bolas. But I can get rid of the Narset. I think our opponent has another one. But we can also Narset. So I'm going to get rid of Narset here. Or maybe I'm supposed to... I think I'm going to get rid of Narset so I can cast Behold the Multiverse. This is a tough game. Alright, I can Mystic Sanctuary back the... I guess part the Waterveil. We're a little closer to casting that one than anything else. Put it on top. Wish I could play this, I really do. Of all the Planeswalkers, it's the Dovin that's hurting us the worst here. But we're going to cast our Narset. Now we're guaranteed to at least get one thing. Temporal Sundering is interesting, but I'm just going to take the Waterveil. I wanted to make sure we got a turn spell out of that. Because now when our opponent goes to Bolas, if they choose to plus the Bolas, they don't get to actually draw an extra card, which may or may not matter. And if they just choose to cast their own Narset here, I'll cast Behold the Multiverse. And then hopefully we'll be in a good spot. Guess I'll cast Behold the Multiverse. This will give us something to pitch to the Bolas. Oh my. I don't really want either of those, right? I just want lands here. Although, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That means this costs 6, same as everything else. And then I draw 2? Man. Okay. Guess we'll exile 1. Neither of those were the land we hoped to find. But at least our opponent does not get to draw an extra card on their own. Maybe I'm supposed to bottom both there. Just to try to find land because of the Narset. I kind of assumed, honestly, that the Bolas would take out our Narset. It didn't, which makes things a bit interesting. And, yep, here comes their own Narset. Yep. It's a fascinating match this has been. Yep, now our token does nothing. All right, land on top, though, and I think we're probably going to win. 4, 5, 6. So this thing costs 5. Oh, we can actually cast this now because the Behold the Multiverse went to the graveyard. So, all right, no, we played right. We played right. Had to think it through, but we did the right thing. And in theory, we will now be oh my gosh. We would have been okay if not for the Narset, which is just exiled our graveyard. Or the Ashiok. What a blowout. Gosh. All right, land on top. We had everything so perfectly planned out. Oh, no. Well, let's see what we find here. A Dictate. Not precisely what we were looking for. That is painful. Well, I guess the game isn't over. And look, the game turns pretty quickly if we can get going here, right? As long as our opponent isn't playing counter magic, we've at least got a shot. I can't believe we got by that Ashiok. We've just been one turn or one land away so many times in this match already. And unfortunately, the Dictate of Kruphix, I'm going to play it because it's mana efficient here, but while we have Narsets, it doesn't actually do anything for either of us. But if it gives us a chance, right? If we hit the land and we get to cast the first Alrund's Epiphany, then we get to take this thing out, then we get to cast the second Alrund's Epiphany. Ooh. Our opponent's using the Elder Spell to blow up both of them. And I think we're going to lose the game to the Bolus activation. Well, legendary creature, planeswalker. I don't have any of those. I guess we'll lose to that. We got here by the Super Friends deck, but we get Mystical Disputes now. Negates. Okay. That was honestly a frustrating match. That wasn't great for us, but we get easy cuts. We get to cut the Engulf the Shores. We'll cut it to Teferi. The question is if we want the thing in the ices. I don't know. Blink of an eye doesn't seem too bad. And maybe we'll give something like this a shot. I don't know. That was an interesting match. Wow, we had a good line there with that Temporal Trespass. All it took was one, right? If we get to cast one of those Alrund's Epiphanies, we get going. We weren't quite able to get there. But now we get to be on the play. And I guess this looks like a keeper to me. It's not amazing, but we've got a Censor, we've got a Blink of an Eye, and then, never gonna Shark Typhoon. I said it in the open. It's secretly one of the best cards in the deck. If your opponent starts, boarding in all this counter magic, thinks you're gonna play some, really hyper specific kind of game with you, and then you just cycle and make a 5/5 Shark token. Sometimes that's just good enough. So hopefully we'll find a third land here. Opponent went bottom with that Scry. All right, there's a Shark Typhoon. If I don't censor anything here, I'll probably just cycle the Shark Typhoon. We just want to find a land and just keep making our land drops and just keep building up. And I would say that that's probably what's on the table is our opponent goes Scry. And we'll get Thoughtseize. I don't mind. You know what? I can censor this Thoughtseize. I don't really want to give them the information. Maybe that's wrong, but I kind of want to protect both Shark Typhoons in my hand. That really... Oh my gosh. Okay, well, we're not really getting any cooperation out of our deck in this match, but that's all right. The deck has 24 lands. It's got plenty of lands. A little unlucky. And I could have played that Mystic Sanctuary first. I could have played around it a little bit. I thought about it, but it didn't seem worth it at the time. Honestly, it still kind of doesn't. So, but we'll see here. Things are still fine. Try to find a land. There it is. One off always. Okay. Oh, of course. Okay. This seems reasonable, though. We get to pass the turn. We get to cast a Dictate of Kruphix on their instep, assuming there's no Narset joining the party here. And we'll at least put them to the test. We'll see what they... Ooh, they've got nothing. And we are starting to ramp up anyway. Nothing to do here, and we do have to let them draw extra cards if we don't have our own Narset in play. But look, I think I can handle them casting one Planeswalker a turn, and we just blink of an eye it or Shark Typhoon it or what have you here. So we'll see what their plan is. It is a Nicol Bolas Dragon God. Okay. I can make a 3/3 Shark here. All right, we'll pitch the land. And then I think I could make the Shark. I kind of think I just want to blink of an eye this thing back to their hand. I just want them to take as long as possible, really. And we're going to need to find a turn spell that we can cast. Remember, this thing does tax us. Now, hitting Narset here is very, very nice, frankly. So we can't... Remember, this thing taxes our instants and sorceries. So we have access to 3/6 mana. So I can't just fire off Part the Waterveil, but I can cast this Narset and see what we find. Another Dictate. Okay, so now we're talking. Right now we got a little bit of a combo going. Our opponent can't draw extra cards with their Bolas if they replay it. They can't they have to deal with the Narset. There's 2 Dictates that are going to be in play. I think we're going to be set up to just combo here. I wouldn't be shocked if they minus on the Narset, honestly. And that's what they're going to do. But you know what? I think that's fine. I think that's fine with us. It means we can't cast the Karn Temporal Sundering this turn, but there we go. We hit the land, and now we can start playing cards. So let's go ahead and start off with the Part the Waterveil. With 3 draws, I just want to see what I get, right? It's pretty easy for us to just get going here. Even though, obviously, we're not doing anything with... It's essentially an Explore, but an Explore, when you're drawing a bunch of extra cards, pretty good. And remember, there we go. Yep, every card that goes to our graveyard also builds up the Temporal Trespass. Until the turn when you get a double spell by casting this for cheap and playing your Teferi or whatever, right? So, in this case, though, pretty straightforward. In fact, this feels very good for us. We get to cast an Alrund's Epiphany. We've time squawked. We've got some birds. Take our next turn, and now we can get rid of the Bolas, and we can poke at the Dovin. So, I think corner turned here. All right, Bolas down. Now, do I want to bring back anything that's on top of my deck with the Mystic Sanctuary? Probably not. Play an island here. So I have 9 mana. I could exile 4, which would make this thing cost 7 and then 8. So I could go for this. But you know what? Say our opponent's not really doing anything. I kind of feel comfortable just passing the turn back to them here. Maybe not. Oh, and you know what? Discarding the hand size doesn't hurt either. Maybe not, the way you want to combo off when you're playing Modern or whatever, right? But in this particular circumstance, it works out pretty well because we're just going to get to cycle a Shark Typhoon and make a 7/7, right? That's pretty powerful. That will be able to take out the Dovin to get rid of the taxes. Also, we're going to have access to Blink of an Eye here. We just have a bunch of choices depending on what our opponent chooses to do. They're going to play a Liliana Dreadhorde General. I do not care about that card at all. Not even a little. They do have Mystical Dispute up, for what it's worth. So we'll keep that in mind. We haven't drawn any of our own counter magic to protect anything yet. But we're about to draw 4 new cards between our draw step, the dictates, and this massive Shark Typhoon cycle. I can use the Shark Typhoon token to take out the Liliana if I want. I can use it to take out the Dovin if I want. We've got choices. It just depends on what we draw. I would like to keep in mind Mystical Dispute and play around it as much as possible. Or not. They've got a Fatal Push here for our Shark. So, okay. That's a thing. Unfortunately for them, though, we are now well and truly set up, right? We have 10 mana. I can awaken a land with the Waterveil. Yep, that seems like the play. Wake this island up. And now we get to, I guess, poke in at the Dovin. Until your next turn, huh? Good to know. That means that even though we're going to take a turn after this, this one still's not going to do anything. But that's okay. I have to imagine that this is good enough. I'll discard the blink of an eye, I guess. I don't think I care much about it. There's a Mystical Dispute. Okay. So let's send the 6/6 token at them. Let's send the bird at the Dovin. And see what happens. I think we've got this one. Our opponent is going to draw an extra card here off Liliana. No big deal. We've got turns to go. Turns price to sell over here. Okay, we'll cast our Teferi. I guess I could have phased that token of theirs, but it doesn't much. Draw a discard. I'll throw away a Censor. And now I will play a Temporal Trespass. Yep, that looks like what we need to do. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess if they have a Force of Negation, well, that's not legal. I don't think there's anything they could have here. But we'll cast the Temporal Trespass, getting rid of all of these cards. All right, Temporal Trespass on the stack. I have the next turn. I can go. Well, next turn I'll have the Karn Temporal Sundering on top of the Teferi here. So, all right, game should be over here. Our opponent's going to make us play it out. That's fine with me. I'm having fun. We'll do this. Slowly work our way up to that Teferi ultimate. Sure. I'll throw away a Dictate. Move to combat. Send the token at them. This one at the Dovin. Look, we did it. We've worked our way through the tax. You saw how, I mean, as much as we got hosed by the graveyard hate in game 1 with the Temporal Trespass, it was really big in this game. Now, we ended up just kind of getting there anyway, but it really, you can see how the ability to discount it can make a big difference, allowing you to double spell. All right, I'm going to cast this. Choose me. Bounce that thing just because we can. Foretell this. If our opponent wants us to play it out, I'll play it out. That's fine with me. Okay, move to our next turn. We'll see if this is our last turn, if we find the other part, the Waterveil. Although I might have pitched one, I don't really remember. All right, well, sure. It is a part the Waterveil. We did it. Well, here we go. So, I will awaken this thing onto this, and we will just end the game right here and now with these creatures. On to game 3. Let's see what we can do. Now, does anything change? I mean, gosh, I kind of want the Temporal Trespass back, especially on the draw. I feel like it's probably just going to be kind of necessary. Thing in the Ice is interesting, but I don't think it's worth it because my opponent's strategy of all those Planeswalkers, excuse me, sort of naturally gives them ways to not really to deal with their creature. You know, I wouldn't want to put a bunch of work into a Thing in the Ice just for our opponent to naturally play a Dovin and get us right. So I'm gonna pitch the that's a Karn Temporal Sundering. I guess maybe I'll pitch the Censor again. I kind of wanted to get the 4th one back in there, but we'll give this a shot. Look, I think this game becomes much easier for us if we just draw a hand with negates and mystical disputes and lands. I think that's realistically all we actually want in an opener here in this matchup. So we'll see what our opponent has to do. We didn't see any counter magic out of them. Doesn't mean they don't have it, but they may just be all in on the Planeswalkers, and that's sort of their plan. So I think this is a hand we keep. We've got a negate, so even if it gets Thoughtseize, that's whatever. We've got a Shark Typhoon to go digging for more. And of course, we've got Narset, which is an MVP in the matchup. So this seems like a reasonable opener, but we desperately are going to need to find lands off the top of our deck here. And that does not fit the bill. That's good later. I mean, it cycles for 4 mana. We'll see if we get Thoughtseized here. Ooh, no Thoughtseize. Okay, land, please. All right. Look at that. And so now we're in a really good position where if our opponent goes for one of their mini 3-drop Planeswalkers, all we have to do is negate it, and then we get to play Narset. And if they don't, well, then we just get to cycle a Shark Typhoon to try to find another land, which is what I'm going to do, because all that matters at this point of the game is making land drops. I definitely like drawing that. I think I have to slam Narset here. Wow. Okay. I was gonna say our opponent could very easily have counter magic, but I think we just have to do it. I'm gonna get the negate here. Well, now you can see this is a good position for us, but there's a lot of 4-mana threats our opponent could play that would be quite scary. Unfortunately for them, Dovin Hand of Control is not that. So if we could just find some lands. Well, I guess we're going to be filling our graveyard up for this Temporal Trespass. All right, that's a good one too. Now, so this is really annoying when we don't have lands. I'll say that. We're going to have to pitch some stuff here. I'm going to get rid of the Blink of an Eye and the Part the Waterveil, I guess. What I would ideally like to do here is play the Dictate of Kruphix on their end step and not have to counter anything so that we can actually try to find some lands. If we just find lands, this game would be very over. We'd have the ability to no, I say double negate. I mean, I guess this stops the double negate, but let's see what they have going for them. Nothing. That's what I like to hear. All right, Dictate, get me there, please. It's hard for them when they know we're sitting on so much counter magic, and there's our land. So this is exactly what we wanted to see. This is 7 cards I am more than happy to pass the turn back with. I can negate plus Mystical Dispute? No, I can't. Okay. It's secretly a little worse than it looks. This Dovin Hand of Control. I guess it makes sense because they're controlling the heck out of us, taxing our instants and sorceries. Now, this is a pretty clear, let this thing resolve no matter what they take. I'm still going to have ways to counter their stuff. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if they bend the Temporal Trespass. That's our only threat. And they took the Narset, actually. Okay. Well, now you're just talking my graveyard for this Temporal Trespass with a Dictate. I'll definitely be cycling this Censor on the end step. We're getting pretty close to just kind of going off here now, right? So I will negate this thing. Okay. All right, so they ran out of Sacrificial Kasmina. We took care of it. There's a part the Waterveil. There's an Alrund's Epiphany. Okay. I can pass the turn back with 2 counterspells up. Or I can foretell and have 1 counterspell up. Given that we're not casting that for a while, look, we still just need lands. I'm going to continue to hide behind these 3 counterspells I have and just hope that they're good enough. And look, we now have 6 cards in our graveyard. So if they try to do something here and then, we are able to counter it, the Trespass is really going to be in a good position. And we're just straight locking them right now with this Dictate plus Narset. I mean, look, Dovin's a good control card, but the Narset Dictate of Kruphix draw against a control deck, pretty incredible, is it not? We get to sit behind counter magic, drawing an extra card every single turn, and our opponent cannot, thanks to the Narset saying that they can only draw 1 card a turn. So it makes their planeswalkers worse, a lot of them. It certainly makes a Kasmina worse, right? It makes a Bolas worse. They are in a horrible spot right now. All right, so they want an Elder Spell because they're that worried about Narset. I'll negate this. Their planeswalkers are all blue, so the Mystical Dispute's still online. But more than that, just getting 2 cards while they get 1, we could just play this game for a long time, I think. And now I'm going to pull the trigger. I'm going to Temporal Trespass, exiling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This means we can Mystical Dispute a counterspell if they have it. Unless their counterspell is a Mystical Dispute, I guess. However, it was not. And that clears the way, because that resolved, for us to foretell the Alrund's Epiphany. And now I think we might just have it, right? Behold the Multiverse. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing, right? I get to play this for 7. Well, this costs 7, doesn't it? I think I'm going to go... This is all just about making land drops, right? So... if they had it, they would have used it by surely, right? I'm going to cast this and see what happens. If they've been holding on to counter magic all this time, we'll be in trouble. But okay, fortunately, they were not. So I think we're doing okay now. Now we have the ability to very easily play this, take an extra turn. We can start poking at that Dovin. Because that resolved, I can foretell the Behold the Multiverse, no problem. Yeah, the Narset Dictate engine, I think, got there this game. It was a bit of a struggle, but I think that we've done it. We'll go ahead and poke this thing, because it is very annoying. And, I think I start off by doing this. I don't even know what I'm looking for here. Frankly, both of these are fine. Okay, let's see here. Sorry, making sure I'm not missing anything here. I think I'm safe to pass back with the double Mystical Dispute up and tripical with the triple Mystical Dispute up and get there that way. We'll go ahead and pitch the island. Let them have a turn. What are they going to do through triple Mystical Dispute and Shark Typhoon cycle if we really want it, which I probably will if they go to the instep. But I have to say, I think we got there. It was a struggle. It was a long match. It was against a control deck with Narsets, which seems like one of the worst matchups for us outside of an all-out aggro deck. But at least that one's a little more straightforward. But I think that we've done it. Our opponent had some spice in their Grixis control deck, by the way. But I think that we've gotten there. We have the ability to counter anything they want to do. We get to make a Shark Typhoon, and the Shark Typhoon token will just get there, right? It'll be a 4/4. I'm sorry, it'll be a 5/5. It will combine with the bird that doesn't get Dovined, and we'll be swinging for 6. That's a 3-turn clock. So we'll be able to awaken a land with part of the Waterveil, I think, depending on what our opponent wants to do here. I could also just play out a Dictate. We could just play Dictate, keep open some counter magic on their end step, and guarantee kind of that we don't fizzle. You know, the deck doesn't necessarily run a ton of turn spells. Compared to like Modern, you could fit 20 turn spells or whatever in your deck with a straight face. This version only has the 12, I think we have. So it's a little different in that, but either way, I think we're in a good spot. As a matter of fact, I think our opponent might have thrown in the towel and got themselves a drink or something. took a break while we were comboing off there. So I'm willing to call this one a win. I have to say we've got this thing about as locked up as it could possibly be. I have 3 mystical disputes, tripical dispute, if you will. And we just got all the options in the world available to us. So this one is looking like a win. I'm going to go ahead and kill this recording. I'll consider this an excellent proof of concept that not only will you take a bunch of turns and wins, you'll bore your opponents right out of the match. And you know what? That's a strategy too. All right. I guess we'll jump into the next one. We'll see what we get matched up there. And if my opponent comes back, this won't be the end of this match, but we'll see. So everybody, on to the next one. All right, here we go. More turns action in Pioneer, and our opponent is on the draw. It looks like they mulligan down to 6, though. We're going to get Thoughtseized. We are. A special Thoughtseize. Look at that one. That's cool. I assume this is a secret lair of some kind. Apparently, this is a puzzle man. And this puzzle man has had a piece of puzzle taken out of his forehead. Well, I can't imagine that's very fun. You're a puzzle guy. I don't know what I got. That's an interesting art. That's fine. We are going to just play our cards out and see where things go. I mean, we're not doing much. So our opponent's on straight discard here, so that doesn't feel very good. We're gonna get the racked. I can't say I love that. So we'll see what happens here. I mean, look, drawing lands is not the worst thing. Look, you need 6 lands or more in this deck to do your thing. And I guess it's fine that our opponent's not putting a bunch of pressure on us yet, but I am a little worried about the all discard deck here, although it's a nice draw. All right, that's a lot of options. I think I will take the Alrund's Epiphany and pass the turn. So now, next turn, if our opponent wants to activate their Mutavault to swing at Narset, okay, so what? They knock Narset down to 1. They almost waste their turn doing so. And then next turn, we will have an Engulf the Shore X equals 4 if they try to make that same play. If they try to use the Mutavault and maybe a 2-drop that they follow up with, we'll be in a good spot. Although I have to say this is not one that I considered, and it's pretty good. They're not going to get their trigger here because of the fact that they're going to swing this at Narset. But that's okay. I mean, look, we essentially paid 3 mana to cycle, and it fogged, so wasn't the worst. And there's a Dictate, so okay, yeah, I'm just gonna play Teferi. I'm gonna phase this Rankle out. This is also kind of an awkward position for them now because they have to choose whether to activate the Mutavault to guarantee that they get rid of Teferi, and if they don't do that, if they do that, it's overkill, and I get a loot again, and if they don't do that, then I get to phase out this thing because I can activate this ability at any time, including after they've chosen to attack with just the Rankle. So a bit of a tough spot for them, and the thing is, if they don't kill Teferi here, I think they have to fire up the Mutavault, but they're not. They're going to make us discard 2 cards. I guess we'll do this. And they're going to send it at us. Well, that's fine. I'm still going to phase it out. Shark Typhoon, you say? Okay, well, I'd like to draw a discard here. Another Alrund's Epiphany. Well, all I really wanted were lands, and I didn't find them. Yuck. I wanted a land so I could foretell plus dictate. Now I'm going to go a different direction here. I'm just going to double foretell the Epiphanies. And we'll figure it out later. Basically. We have a stock graveyard if we find a Temporal Trespass, so I'll keep looting here. Now my opponent can probably, they're going to send the Mutavault at the Teferi, and, well, no, that doesn't even work, does it? They're playing a Turgid's Lantern. Okay, I'm going to lose 3 life unless I sack a permanent or discard a card. Well, I'll just lose the life. That's fine with me. Rankle will also hit us, probably make us discard, but if that's true, we get to keep Teferi around. And they're just gonna, they're gonna figure it out. And they're gonna send it at us. Okay. I assume make us discard here. Each player discards a card. Okay, well, I'll loot. Don't think we need this. And now the question is, do I get rid of the Engulf the Shore or the Dictate? I think I get rid of the Dictate. All I want to do is play a land and play Engulf the Shore and then play another land. Right? I don't need to get... I'm going to bounce this silly Rankle while I can. Oh, no. Well, we might just get burned out here. There's our land. Okay, well, this is going to be an interesting one. We are very close to turning the corner, but we have not done so yet. We'll get 2 shots at it next turn thanks to the loot. If I get to bounce everything here, they're going to Thoughtseize us, so I guess now's as good a time of any to cast the Engulf the Shore. Thoughtseize resolves. Okay, well, we've got some outs here. We've got some good draws. Any land does it. A Temporal Trespass does it, and I guess I say does it, and that's kind of a meaningless statement right now. But I assume once we start casting Alrund's Epiphanies, we'll be able to deal with the rest of it. They're actually going to send the Mutavault at the Teferi. That's fine. We're just throwing this card into our graveyard, but well, guess it's an Alrund's Epiphany. Okay, land, please. Yeah, this is pretty much it, because we're getting burned out by this Shrieking Affliction. That's not a land. Is this a land? Wow. Wow. Okay. This is certainly a way to lose. In fact, we might just be dead. Yep, I'll lose 3 life. I guess if they spend their mana to untap this, then I can discard the Engulf the Shore and still have a shot at winning. Each opponent who can't loses 3 life. Okay. Well, I should be able to discard a card. We have so many outs on our turn. I did not think we were... Oh, we're dead. We're dead to the Shrieking Affliction. Okay. Yeah, I guess that'll do it. GG, the rack. Pretty unlucky that we weren't able to get a 6th land there, I'll say that. But hey, that's the way it goes sometimes. He's in here. Is this where we want Thing in the Ice? I kind of don't hate it. I don't hate it. We'll bring in a couple. We'll give this a shot. That was an interesting match, or an interesting game, I have to say. I honestly felt favored throughout most of it, but our opponent was able to just keep poking away at us. And look, maybe I messed up by pitching the Dictate, right? Maybe our opponent went for us and not, so I said Teferi kind of equals Dictate, right? This game isn't about amassing cards right now, it's just about getting to these turn effects. And the idea was that Teferi helps us get there as well as the Dictate does, but we get to keep the Engulf the Shore that way. And as it worked out, it didn't quite go that way. Instead, we just weren't able to find the land on the critical turn. But look at it this way. That game comes down to whether we find land there. Because if we find land, cast Alrund's Epiphany, get 2/1/1s, we get to start moving forward. Then we get to cast another Alrund's Epiphany. We get to be looting with Teferi this whole time. We'll have a Dictate or counter magic or whatever we want by the end of that. Unfortunately, we just weren't quite able to turn the corner. Now we're going to be on the play, though. Double Censor, Thing in the Ice, and Narset. I think this is pretty good. Depending on what our opponent does, I will absolutely just slam Thing on the Ice in turn 2 and hope that they boarded out their removal. All right, it's a Shrieking Affliction that I cannot do anything about, but what I can do is play Thing in the Ice, and this is the moment, and I've been in this position where you're playing against the blue deck, and you've seen no creatures, and you've boarded out all your Fatal Pushes and all your other removal spells, and all of a sudden your opponent just plays a Thing in the Ice. It's scary, as is Narset against Mazemind Tome. Not that, I mean, it doesn't make Mazemind Tome that much worse. This card's nuts. They still get a scry, they still get a draw on my turn and all that, but we get to resolve a Narset here and just start going to work. So as long as our opponent just doesn't absolutely destroy us with their 3-drop, then their 4-drop, which we've seen as Rankle and Liliana, we will have the ability to censor while taking down the Thing in the Ice. So our opponents put out some threats, but so have we, and that doesn't work. I think they don't have a 3rd land. They got by Narset. I've forgotten that a billion times with Narset. And here we go. I think we're off to the races. So, play a land. Find a Negate. You might as well just scoop them up, friend. On their instep, I'll be cycling this Shark Typhoon just to get a card. Again, all we really want to do is draw lands. So, let's go ahead and make a threat here. Hey, that is pretty threatening. That's a Teferi. That is not a land, but we will pass the turn. Now they're going to draw here. You've got it. Shark comes in. We pass the turn up with Negate and double Censor. So, and if we don't have to do anything, we just get to play a Dictate on the end step. So, really good position for us right here. Any deck that doesn't just have early creatures just gets absolutely got by the Teferi Narset combo. So this is going to get censored. I do not want them to be destroying my Thing in the Ice. Now, if I really wanted, I could cycle the Censor, but I don't think I do because I want to be able to handle, and there's a land. That's great. I want to be able to handle a Rankle. So I would like to attack with my Shark, pass the turn. I'd love to just censor Rankle and then play Dictate of Kruphix and hope that that's a good enough position to be in. We can start casting some turn spells at that point. But we'll see. Instead, it is a Thoughtseize that I think I pretty much have to negate here. And Thing in the Ice plan is working out, by the way, because that's 2 counters down on the Thing in the Ice. Pretty soon it's just going to flip and just be this massive threat they have to deal with. In the meantime, we still have Censor if they go for a 3-drop here. I still have the Dictate if they do anything else. This seems like a strong position for us. All right, we have to discard 2 cards. I'll pitch the Teferi and the Censor because I plan on just playing Dictate and depart the Waterveil here. I'm at least going to give us the shot to win. I mean, I think we pretty much win outright if we find a land. Oh, okay. A little close, but we got there. Now I can part the Waterveil. That puts us down to 1 counter on this thing. Six mana plus 5 in my graveyard. I believe that's enough to Temporal Trespass, and there's a land just to make sure of it. So, all right, good news here. Yep, and this will flip this, and that's lethal. The game's just over. Love it. Okay. In that case, I can just go ahead and play out this one. I guess I lose my, I do lose my Shark token, but hey, that card cycled anyways, and it did the 6 we needed to put him to 14, which is 2 hits from the Thing in the Ice. All right, we did it exactly like we drew it up, right? Okay, on to game number 3. I have these essence captures in here, as opposed to, I guess it doesn't matter because literally all of our lands make blue. But I have them in here instead of you remove soul, essence, scatter type cards. The Thing in the Ice plan worked beautifully. And the thing is, now our opponent has to go back and figure out what they're going to do about Thing in the Ice. Because this is the beauty of it. Thing in the Ice is 2 cards in our deck. If we draw them and we get to play them on turn 2 like we did, that's great. It won us the game. If we don't, whatever. We still have the rest of our game plan. And Thing in the Ice is... it's fine. We can loot that thing away. But it's a lot different for our opponent. If they have removal and their removal lines up with Thing in the Ice, we're not really out that much. We've won for 1, big deal, whatever. But in the games where we don't draw our 2 Thing in the Ice, and my opponent has put in 3 Fatal Pushes into their deck, and they draw 2 Fatal Pushes in their opener, and we don't draw Thing in the Ice, all of a sudden they're just completely hosed, right? They're now sitting on a mulligan to 5 against a deck that is just going to counter their spells and take extra turns. So just the threat of Thing in the Ice is almost better than the Thing in the Ice itself. There's really nothing better than winning game 2 with Thing in the Ice and then putting your opponent onto the hot seat as to how they want to interact with it in game 3. As it turns out, this is the kind of hand I'm talking about. If our opponent has removal for Thing in the Ice here, it does stone nothing. Now, Thoughtseize is obviously the black answer to this because it allows them to hit the Thing in the Ice or anything else. But Dictate, turn spells, if they have removal in their hand, it's just dead. They take the Dictate. I think that makes sense on their part. I'll just do this. I'm going to hold out hope on this Mystic Sanctuary. You have to keep in mind the Castle Vantress is, you say, oh, it's free, it's a mono blue deck. Not quite. They're not islands themselves. Do that. I bet our opponent takes this Behold the Multiverse this time around. Okay. Wow. Okay, well, that's what the rack does, I guess. Consider us racked, and maybe that won't matter. We'll start foretelling these cards away. I mean, we're so far away from this. We only have access to 4 mana at most right now, later on, and we only have... we're a long way away from casting Alrund's Epiphany, okay? But this might just miss, depending on what we hit here. Well, unfortunately not. I'm going to... discard, right? Oh, it exiles the graveyard. I was going to say, I'm into discarding because then the Mystic Sanctuary would bring it back. But as it turns out, our opponent's going to exile our graveyard anyway. So now I'm thinking. I needed an island this turn to really be able to do any shenanigans with the Mystic Sanctuary. The only question is if we want to foretell the Epiphany or mess around with sharks. I think I'd rather just foretell the Epiphany. Look, let them hit our Shark Typhoon with their Elspeth's Nightmare. Let them exile our graveyard, whatever. The point is, they're not putting any pressure on us. We have 4 mana, a Castle Vantress, which, if we can get to 5 mana, will allow us to scry to 6, and then we just start casting Alrund's Epiphany. So our opponent would have to kill us in the time it takes us to do that, and with 2 cards in their hand, it doesn't seem likely. I mean, they've had triple Thoughtseize plus Elspeth's Nightmare, and I still have 2 turn spells lined up if we can just get there. So we'll see how bad it gets. They're going to finish us. Well, there you go. They're going to finish us off with that. So we are straight top decking, and I think all we want to top deck are lands. Just give me 2 more lands off the top of my deck. That's probably my best odds at winning the game here. Oh gosh, here comes the wrinkle. This is how my opponent wins the game. Hitting us for quite a few. Wonder if they get greedy and try to draw cards. Nope. Okay, I'm into that. That's pretty decent. We can even let our opponent put the discard ability on the stack, because they won't put the sack on the stack. And then we can play this Dictate and hope to find an answer. Remember, we do still have access to 2 Engulf the Shores in our deck here, so we can do something to deal with these. But we're getting beat down, so we're going to have to just hit lands in successive turns here. I mean, this is going to be close. I hope I didn't mess up about how this works. I think it still uses the stack. Oh, they didn't even do it. Okay. Well, I'll play Dictate. And now I'll draw 2 cards and hope that they're good. Negate isn't terrible. The island is what matters. Okay, well, this game's going to be close because they're going to come at us for 5 here. They do get extra cards with the Dictate. We don't have a Narset. But we can negate anything that matters too much, like, for instance, Shrieking Affliction. Now it's just, if the top 2 cards of our deck, if one of them is a land, I feel favored. If neither of them are lands, we might just be dead. Our opponent has 1 card in hand after this. They're going to hit us for 5. It can be 6 if they really wanted. I don't think that they will, but they could make us lose a life and draw a card. That would, increase their clock by a turn, but so do a lot of other things. All right, here we go. Their last card is activating a Gaia Reach Sanitarium to make us throw something. I mean, they get a loot, and we're just draw discarding here, and it's a Narset. Okay, that's fine with me. Narset is not land. All I want are lands. That's not a land either. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, you know what? Teferi hangs around. I'll pitch this. This should work? Question mark. I think that, again, our opponent gets to draw extra cards here, but now we get to use Teferi to phase out the Rankle. So I feel like we're probably not taking lethal here, which gives us another couple of looks. Sure. Phase out the Rankle. We'll sacrifice our Teferi. I mean, honestly, I'd say Teferi did its job. It dug us deeper. The Waste Not doesn't matter. We get 2 free looks at the top of our deck here to try to get things going again. Give me a land. Oh my gosh. Come on. Come on, game. Oh, Thing in the Ice blocks the Mutavault. This game is unnecessarily stressful, I'll say that. If we just hit lands, this game feels like we would have won at any point here, but now we really just keep opening ourselves up to our opponent having cards that beat us. So this is going to be difficult. A murderous end, or rather a swift end on the Thing in the Ice. That's fine. Thing in the Ice was honestly just, as long as I don't die, it doesn't matter, right? I can go to 1 here. I can take the 5 and even the 1 from the Rankle, go to 6, take 6, go to 1. I think we can still win from that position, but we'll see. They just attacked with the Rankle. Let's see. I assume they're... I'll see if they put the discard on the stack here. Each player discards a card. Okay. Well, I'm going to cycle this. Oh, I guess I gave him a... Wait. Oh, because I discarded it. I see. Wow. Wow. I don't want to let him draw any cards. So... I guess I'll discard the Waterveil. That way I can still emergency cycle on their instep if I need to. I mean, sooner or later, we've got to find a land, right? Let's see what they do with their extra cards here. Their waste not paid off. It got them stuff. They're going to do this. Each player draws a card, then discards a card. Okay, that's fine. There's our land. All right. Okay. It might all work out in the end. We found our lands, and now we get to begin taking extra turns. But, I mean, look, the game isn't over by any means, because look how far... I mean, we're at 4 life now, and our opponent has cards. So this is still pretty dangerous, even though we do get access to a lot of extra stuff here. I guess it's cycle Censor, cast Alrund's Epiphany number 2. Yeah, you're popping off with the waste knot. I get it. You know, drawing the Waterveil there, I think was pretty good. This attack puts them to 10. We move to our next turn, Teferi, okay. I was going to say, Temporal Trespass is the one I'm looking for. Remember how I brought up that Temporal Trespass allowing you to double spell was secretly the most important thing in the deck? Well, you're looking at it right here. This game would have been genuinely problematic, I think, without just drawing that. So I have 8 mana right now. So I can't play both of these. However, I can play Teferi plus Temporal Trespass. Or, hear me out, what if we Trespass for 3 mana and then use the other... I'm sorry, I'm just trying to do the math here, trying to figure out how we make it lethal. Probably involves the part... I guess with the extra turns, it just doesn't matter regardless. So, yeah, we'll start by Temporal Trespassing. Okay, I guess that just easily resolved. So our opponent's F6. So we should have this thing here as long as we don't mess anything up. I can cycle to make a 3/3, which allows me to attack for 4 down to 6. And then, yep, next turn we'll have the 7, which will be lethal. So, whoo! This was a stressful match, but a very good one, I think. Now, obviously, my opponent could have drawn removal for the Shark to keep themselves alive for an extra turn, but that's where the Waterveil comes in. We got it. We took it down. What a sweater against that. That was a triple Thoughtseize we worked through there. Stressful as heck game, but mono blue taking turns, getting it done. Let's see if we can make it 3-0. All right, trying to finish things off here with taking turns. I think we found the hand we have to mulligan, and this one looks like a keep to me. So I'll probably pitch the Teferi. It looks like our opponent mulliganed as well, so that's at least somewhat helpful, but I think we'll probably throw the Teferi away here. Keeping the cycling, the Narset, and the extra turn. So I think that makes the most sense. Look, Teferi's great, but I think it's a bit of a pipe dream to ever actually get to take 2 extra turns with this thing. Plus, you need 7 turns with it, right? From turn 4 on. So that means between you and your opponent, you're going to need to go 3 to 4 turns after you cast Teferi. Now, it is still a very good card because that is a threatening ultimate, and it phases things out. So it protects you, it loots you. It does make kind of perfect sense for the deck, but it can be very, very slow, especially on the draw like this. Our opponent doesn't have a mana dork. That's nice. All right, well, we should be able to play that Mystic Sanctuary untapped at some point. Maybe we'll even have something to go get by then. No mana dork from our opponent on turn 1 on the forest is definitely what we want, and they mulliganed. Unfortunately, it is likely the kind of matchup where Narset is a little worse. These decks are typically less interested in drawing cards and more interested in just beating down, but look at that. Still no play. I will count my blessings. Count my blessings and untap into a... I think we'll just be foretelling this Alrund's Epiphany. No reason to just cycle a Shark Typhoon for no value in this spot, I think. All right, Temporal Trespass, also pretty happy about that one. Never sad to see that card. It is just very powerful. In fact, it should probably be played... Now, I know people don't like extra turns in Commander, but it should probably be played more in Commander. I have some decks that run turn effects that would probably like to cast this thing for 3 mana occasionally. Okay, we have found our opponent's creature. It's a very powerful Garruk's Harbinger, protection from hexproof from black. When it deals combat damage to that many cards, you can put a creature or Garruk into your hand. That's a huge reload card, right? That's a very, very powerful card for green decks, especially obviously against black decks. But even against us, it's still going to go find creatures off the top of their deck, and it's going to eat our Narset, that's for sure. But we're doing okay. We've got some turns. We've got a Shark Typhoon. We just kind of want, this is not exactly it. I guess I'll take the Waterveil. We want lands and Engulf the Shore, ideally. Maybe I'm even supposed to take the other Narset there, just in the hopes of Narset plus fogging while digging for Engulf the Shore. We'll see. Voice of Resurgence is not that big of a deal. Narset's gonna fall. Yeah, I mean, you can see actually getting Narset there might have been better than getting. Oh my gosh, it's when he does combat damage to a Planeswalker too? This card is insane. And I get a Fleece main line. Okay, green-white aggro. All right, there's a land, though. I'm pretty happy about that. This does look like a position where I'll just be cycling the Shark Typhoon here. Because we need to get to 6 mana, yes, but we need something to do when we get there. And right now we don't have anything to do. Have Trample? Doesn't have Trample. Jump Log if I really want to. See what we find. Probably just be blocking the Voice of Resurgence, although I don't even know if that's good per se. It might not be. We'll see what we hit. That's a fairy. Okay. I think I'm gonna block here. No, I'm gonna block here. The fairy is not great, like I mentioned, but it'll phase something out. We'll keep them from getting extra creatures, and we'll just hope to keep making land drops. I kind of like holding up Censor. I can't do both though, and I definitely need to play a land. So, well, we're 1 turn away from an Alrund's Epiphany. I think I'm going to play Teferi and I'm going to cycle Censor. So I'll probably start by cycling Censor. I think that's got to be the idea. I think that's got to be the line here. Cycle Censor puts another card into our graveyard for the Trespass. The Teferi will buy us some time one way or another, whatever we choose to do with it. Plus, it will loot another card into the graveyard. So we're looking at the Temporal Trespass. So we'd really like to sort of chain these things together here. And it's pretty easy to pitch apart. Okay, that's a good draw. Pretty easy to pitch apart the Waterveil here, I think. All right, so Teferi's basically just going to have to eat it here. But with Engulf the Shore now, that's pretty key for us. And it makes our opponent's attacks a little awkward. Because if they were to send just both Voice of Resurgences at Teferi, I could plus it and it survive. If they send just this, I could minus it and it survives. So they're forced to send 2 creatures at the Teferi, like so. 1 at me. Now, if I wanted, I could just phase out the other voice that's coming at me. But if I want to deny them cards, I could just phase out this. But I actually think I'm going to just draw a discard. Just to fill the graveyard for the Temporal Trespass. That feels like a card we will be casting at some point this game. And Karn's Temporal Sundering, not necessarily doing us a lot. I mean, we're going to have 5 cards in our graveyard after we cycle the Censor. So if we can find another land for the Alrund's Epiphany, we get to start taking extra turns. And once we start, there's no telling where we'll stop, right? But at the very least, we're going to have an Engulf the Shore available to us. Yep, Tracker is a very good card, but a little slow here with them missing their land drops and not having it. I guess they miss a land drop at least. Okay, well, let's see if we can find a land. Wait a minute, this thing survived? They changed their attack so this thing survived? I'm in. That's huge. Getting another draw discard out of it at a minimum is massive, because if we didn't hit our land there, and fortunately we did, you know, we could have really needed that shark. We could have needed this Teferi for huge. Okay, so we'll start by Alrund's Epiphany. It begins. And I'm going to take a couple turns here before I end up making a decision on the Engulf the Shore. So we'll take our turn. We'll continue to loot. This Temporal Trespass is getting very cheap very quickly. And hopefully, I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll be able to put together something like a big Shark Typhoon on the same turn we Temporal Trespass. All I'm looking for here are lands, so we'll start by attacking. Cast apart the Waterveil. Now that one will get exiled, so it won't contribute to future Temporal Trespasses, but the Teferi we get to untap with will. Definitely don't need that second Engulf the Shore. So we'll poke on in again. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, this thing's now free. So I could cycle a Shark Typhoon X equals 2 if I want. Yeah, I guess that's what we'll do. Okay, make a Shark Typhoon for 2. You know what I should have done actually here is I should have Shark Typhooned first and then kept a turn spell in my graveyard to Mystic Sanctuary back. Could be a bit of a punt, to be honest. Hopefully not, but you never know. We found a Censor, okay. I mean, this is 4 turns if we can come up with a couple more. Right? This is a 4-turn clock if we can dig. This Teferi's nowhere near, but we've got a couple shots and we have apart the Waterveil in hand, so we're gonna hopefully eventually find it without having to resort to the Engulf the Shore, because the Engulf the Shore just slows everything down. It doesn't win the game. And in fact, it bounces all of our creatures that we need to win the game. So I think we're pretty in on just trying to find more turn spells. I mean, we can't awaken the part of the Waterveil, unfortunately. We're not remotely close to that. But we can cast it. So between the Teferi, the draw steps, the Censor, well, we've got a lot of good draws. And you know what? I'm going to keep thinking about this. Possible on that turn, I should have just cast apart the Waterveil and held the Temporal Trespass in case we hit, a Dictate or something like that we want to cast along with it. So lots of stuff to keep in mind here. I don't know that I've played this super perfectly. That's not bad, though. All right, so if I go 6 mana for the Part the Waterveil, play the land, foretell the Behold the Multiverse, I think I can pitch the Censor here. We'll attack for 4. And we're still going to be digging next turn, but, we've got a shot. We've got a shot. And if nothing else, we'll have the Engulf the Shore. Although, I'm going to be honest, I don't know if we win after we cast that card. I don't know if we'll be able to come. We've used all our runs, Epiphanies. We've pretty much done everything, but we've at least still got some shots. All right, we can cast. So I'm gonna start with this, and it's just turn spells or bust. If we have a turn spell in our top 2, we keep it. If we don't, we put them on the bottom. So they're both going on the bottom. And we hit an all runs Epiphany. Woo! Got there. Pay full value for that thing. I think we need one more to end the game. We're not there yet. But hey, now we have chump blocks and flying attackers. And Teferi's got a bunch of counters to face up. This is problematic for our opponent, even if we don't just win here. And there's a possibility we might. I mean, there's also a possibility we might not. It all comes down to this draw. Okay. That gets it done. It came down to the wire, but we got there. We will bounce the tracker just because we can. Woo! I talked about how Teferi was maybe not the best, but you know what? That looting effect got us there this time. That was a close one. And there's that Mystic Sanctuary I was talking about earlier. Remember, I could have played this game, I think, where I kept a discarded turn spell in my graveyard, and then I could have Mystic Sanctuaried it back and looted it into my hand. So I actually cost myself some number of outs there. But hey, we got there, and now we know what our opponent's up to, and we know that it's a pretty good time for these cards. Opponent says GG. All right, well, I'm glad they enjoyed it. I had fun. What do we want to cut here? I don't think I can cut any more turn spells is the problem, and I'm kind of loath to cut a Shark Typhoon. I'll cut a Censor. We've definitely diluted our deck a little bit here, and we don't have hard answers to sort of green-white stuff. We only have delays. So that was a very close game. Imagine if we didn't have the legendary. Imagine if we hadn't kept our Teferi there. We wouldn't have been able to cast the Karn Temporal Sundering. So that game was pretty close. Now this hand is kind of atrocious, right? It's a card we're not going to cast forever, but hey, it's got a thing in the ice. So, and this may be the wrong way to go about it. Our opponent has a pretty aggressive 1-drop here. But I really like, in matches where I take the first game, to keep high potential hands in game 2. And like I said, maybe that's not the way you're supposed to look at it, blah, blah, blah. Maybe, you're not supposed to get sucked into the well, I've got a game to give, right? That's not the way you want to look at it. And that's not the way I'm looking at it. But when I look at this hand with a Thing in the Ice and a Temporal Trespass, this hand has a very, very high upside, even if its downside is also pretty real, right? And that's certainly the case with what can happen with if you draw a bunch of lands or a bunch of expensive spells. But given that we're up a game and given that we're on the draw, I like the potential here. Although I will say this is terrifying. This humans deck our opponent is running, this thing's going to be a 3/3, and it's going to be a 4/4. I mean, this is just going to be bigger than our Engulf the Shore, and that seems like a problem for us. So, Thing in the Ice hopefully coming up clutch here, but we're not even particularly close to casting anything, right? And the Engulf the Shore will bounce the Thing in the Ice, so unless it's the last one, right? So, I mean, next turn we'll be able to cycle a Shark Typhoon and sort of see where we get, but this hand needs some help. It only specifically needs some help, though, because our opponent had this incredible start of this, oh my gosh, Warden of the First Tree on 1, Luminarch Aspirant on 2, and Garrick's Harbinger on 3. Although I have to say, with the way my opponent has played this thus far, putting the counters, spreading the counters out instead of going tall on this Warden, it means I'm more likely to be able to actually catch it with the Engulf the Shore, so that's pretty nice. And you know what? That's a draw. Not the best draw, but hey, we're getting beat down a little bit here. But this Engulf the Shore will be pretty decent against this particular opener from my opponent. And we have our lands. I like that. We can actually put the Engulf the Shore back on top of our deck with the Mystic Sanctuary, which also feels pretty strong. And so we've just got the ways to delay until we get to start taking extra turns. And we'll see, you know, wow, look at this. Sure. Thing in the Ice down, I guess. But you know what? That means our opponent uses Shramoka's command to take out a Thing in the Ice. We weren't particularly close to flipping, rather than destroy an enchantment, namely our Dictate of Kruphix later. That said, we are still taking roughly infinite from this attack. Down to 6. It's going to be a hard one, that's for sure. A good draw here. Another Thing in the Ice. I mean, it's not the worst draw. I think we're still in trouble, though. Because I'm going to be forced to cast Engulf the Shore, my opponent's beginning of combat. That'll keep us alive. But they're going to be able to rebuild. And because we're so low, I mean, all it really takes is them casting, and this is not going to help us either. I don't think we're going to be able to dig out of this one. Okay. I say we're not going to be able to dig out of this one. This is one of the best. This is great. Our opponent playing something pre-combat, tapping out for it, allowing us to bounce their board. We take no damage. All of a sudden, we have a way back into this game. That was huge. That was insanely clutch. And I understand why they did it. They wanted to make more of their creatures lethal by putting this extremely powerful overrun effect out. But I don't know if that's going to be good enough for him here. I'm just thinking this one through here. I think I want to Mystic Sanctuary the Engulf the Shore back on top. Because I have all the lands I'm going to need. Let's play a Thing in the Ice and make them care about it. I'm probably going to end up cycling the Shark Typhoon. And then next turn, we're going to cast the Alrund's Epiphany. And we'll have down to 3 on the Thing in the Ice. So I don't know. Look, this game's up in the air. I don't, because that Engulf the Shore is a real hit or miss card, right? It saved us there. It was incredible. However, at the same time, our opponent could just reload. And then the problem is Engulf the Shore just delays. And if our opponent's able to reload and kill us again, and we don't have sort of a board to protect, that we're using that Engulf the Shore to protect. We need to use that to protect planeswalkers and so on, not just to simply fog and not die. So we've got a shot here, though. And our opponent's playing out Garrick's Harbinger here. This is nice and slow from them. So we're going to have the out of the Engulf the Shore still available to us, because we're going to have enough islands now to be able to even outstrip some of this Ajani shenanigans here. And they're just going to plus it. Sure. Okay, well, this is, again, is probably about as much as we could hope for. I'll get a chump blocker out of the deal here. But depending on what we hit, and hitting an island is not exactly what we wanted to hit, but I'm going to go ahead and cast the Alrund's Epiphany. And this will allow me to take out the Ajani at least. So we are actually making progress with this. But we're going to need to find some good stuff. And I don't know if Censor is it. It's not the worst, though. All right, so I have 7. This costs 7, 8, 9. So I cannot cast the Temporal Trespass. But you know what? The world is all is not lost, because we get to take out a Johnny. We get to pass the turn back. Or maybe I don't. Maybe I cycle the Censor here. Because if I find Teferi, for instance, I'm going to want to cast Teferi. Or a second Thing in the Ice. I don't know if the second Thing in the Ice really changes anything, but I might as well play it. The Thing in the Ice is get bounced if I have to Engulf the Shore. So the hope here is that I can survive the turn without having to play Engulf the Shore. And then we try to find cards that are going to allow us to take more turns and flip a Thing in the Ice. So I think I just take 4 and go to 2 here and hope that we don't get giant growth out of it. They'll go find a card. I mean, that's kind of whatever. We're unlikely to win the game on board. We just want to try to... Ronus the Indomitable. Yeah, don't mind that one too much. Okay, so we're just going to need to draw something good here on our turn is all. I have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you know what? A land actually allows us to cast a Temporal Trespass. So, and anything else we should be able to play. So there should be a lot of good draws here, and there's a land that's, I guess, one of them. Okay, well, now there's one other thing that might come up if we can hit another instant or sorcery here, but we'll see. The Thing in the Ice, if you cast a spell, the trigger for this will resolve before the spell does. So it would actually have 8 toughness, and although I say that, actually 8 toughness would still get bounced, so maybe that's not exactly what we want to be triggering it with. But if these things don't have trample, and they don't, we might actually be able to survive a turn here. Oh, nice draw. Nice draw. Clutch. And now we put ourselves in a position where if we can get lucky one more time, any turn spell off the top of our deck will transform the Thing in the Ice, giving us a 7/7 to beat down with, while bouncing their board and giving us roughly infinite time. So big draw step here. Okay, big draw step again. Get a redraw out of it and a Dictate. Okay. Well, I guess we pass. I shouldn't be able to die here. I think we're safe from losing. So if my opponent allows us to make blocks, that seems great for us, right? We just make chump blocks. We play Dictate, and then we're still alive to just transforming the Thing in the Ices with what we draw. And if things go completely sideways, we have the Engulf the Shore. Although, again, that seems pretty bad for us. I could actually cast both of them if that's what it came down to. Hopefully that's not what it comes down to. All right, here they come. It becomes a 3. It becomes a 3/3, but they don't... I don't think they have any ways to pump anything here, and they don't have enough mana to do everything. So these should be safe blocks, and these should be safe chump blocks. No trample. I think we survive here, which means we start to try to develop an engine. It all really comes down to what their 4 cards in hand are. And the thing is, a deck like that, I think we know one of them's a Luminarch Ascension. So they have 3 unknowns, and those cards have to be pretty good here. All right, so they want to fight this thing in the ice. I guess I have to let that happen because bouncing all the creatures just doesn't get us anywhere, right? So we still have a thing in the ice. And now we're going to get to resolve Dictate. So the thing is, the Engulf the Shore becomes much better with the Dictate of Kruphix in play. Because if we're getting extra cards out of the deal, well, now we're actually advancing our board state while we interact, not just staving off death. That said, we've still got a long way to go here, especially now needing 2 counters for the thing, because we don't have the 1 anymore. But we'll play Dictate and see what happens on our draw step. Yeah, this is all fine because we're obviously casting. These are getting bounced one way or another. Either we're going to be able to do it with Thing in the Ice, or the Engulf the Shore is going to have to get cast, and we're going to have to figure things out. So let's see what the draw step has for us. Okay, well, we can live forever. Oh my gosh, look at that. That's interesting. So I could do this. I don't think I'd have enough chump blocks then. I could also just plan on taking it slower, engulfing the shore twice if need be, and then Alrund's Epiphany. We're going to at least engulf the shore once. In fact, I think I might be engulfing the shore on my main phase. Because I have 8 islands, and I need to bounce these things. So if my opponent gets any more creatures, they'll actually be too big to bounce. So we're going to engulf the shore now. And their stuff doesn't have haste, so this is whatever. And we'll replay a Thing in the Ice. And we will foretell an Alrund's Epiphany. Which, again, this is not where I wanted to be, per se. I wanted to flip the other Thing in the Ice off the Alrund's Epiphany this turn, right? If we had the one with just the 1 counter. And then we would be able, I think, to put together lethal between the 7 from that plus the 2 we'd get from the Epiphany on the extra turn. I think we would have hit him from 15 down to 8 and then had 9 to finish him off. So our opponent having that fight card with the Dromoka's Command actually saved the day for them. But the game is not over yet. We can still put together a couple different routes. Unfortunately, our deck does not play a ton of, these cards are banned, I guess, or not legal, but Ponder, Preordain type effects, Ops. We don't have the easy ways to transform Thing in the Ice, so if the deck stays as currently constructed without those cards, it's possible that Thing in the Ice is not the right card out of the sideboard. We kind of have a difficult time transforming them. They're good for stressing out our opponents, but I don't know if it's necessarily where we want to be in this kind of creature matchup, at least. But we are going to live forever, so I wouldn't hate a Planeswalker here. Yeah, this Engulf the Shore is going to keep us around. But we're going to get 4 draws, right? Because we're going to get an extra turn off the Epiphany. So we're going to get draw step, plus Dictate draw, plus extra turn Dictate draw. So we're and then at the end of all of that, we're going to have an Engulf the Shore. So it's just about finding ways to actually finish off our opponents, right? We need ways to win. And let's see what we find. Land and spell, please. Whatever that spell is, a Planeswalker, a Dictate, this is the turn, I think, and this trigger where we need to hit something that impacts the board. Otherwise, things are going to get really difficult for us. Dromoka's command is pretty good against us too, because not only does it allow him to fight the thing in the ice and save the game, it also can get rid of our Dictate, and that was not what we were looking for. Double land off the top was not where it's at. And now we've blown through 2 of our 4 draws. Let's see if we get there on the next 2. Censor, okay. Redraw time. And a land. Okay. Play a land, cycle the Censor. Oh, look at that. Apart the Waterveil. What a clutch draw. Part the Waterveil with Awaken. Now, I don't know how important the Awaken is, given that our opponent has infinite blocks with the Voice of Resurgences, but it is a turn spell. It gives us another dig here. And we get to poke through some damage. Alrund's Epiphany off the top, perhaps? Oh my gosh, another Part the Waterveil. Okay, well, we might just be able to do this thing. And a Teferi. Incredible. Okay, well, then. I guess I send the land. Because either they take it and things get a lot easier, or we at least get a Voice of Resurgence off the battlefield here. But now I get to play Teferi, loot, and take another turn. So if we can just string together a couple of turn spells, we'll get there. A couple more, anyway. Also, don't look now, but this thing in the ice flips the next instant or sorcery. So we're going to now have 3 draw steps, 3 draws, the draw, the Dictate, and the Teferi loot, to find 1 more turn spell, and the next turn spell wins the game. So here we go. Land, that's not it. I have to... Oh, gosh. Another land. That's not it either. Okay. What do we got? Apart the Waterveil. Wow. Look at that. Okay. I guess we just part. This is not, in fact, a horror. But yeah, we'll just part the Waterveil. Bounce everything. Swing for 7, swing for 7 again. I think we did it. And you know what? Actually, I could have just won. I could have ended it. How about that, everybody? We went 3-0 with mono blue turns playing against, I mean, maybe not the tier 1 decks of the format, but certainly brews on the level of ours. And we won through it, but we won through hand disruption. We beat aggro decks. We did a lot. I was very happy with the Censors to the deck. It gives you a key piece of interaction on turn 2. The redraws from them later in the game were the difference between winning and losing. I really like this deck. I don't know how it would do against the all-out aggro decks in Pioneer. I think that's probably the biggest problem for it. But as a proof of concept of playing turns in Pioneer, this was a lot of fun, and you could do a lot worse if you're trying to have a good time. So everybody, thank you so much for watching. I don't think I'd really... I mean, I don't know what changes we would make. I think more Behold the Multiverse is probably good. I think moving away from... gosh, I don't know. Maybe cut like a Teferi, because the card is good. We saw it be good for us, but it is expensive, and it's just so bad when you're on the draw and do nothing for the first 3 turns. I think I'd want another 2-drop, so another Foretell spell there. Behold the Multiverse would probably be good, but I was thrilled with how this played out. I had a lot of fun. Everybody, thank you so much for watching Punting Pioneer here on Cool Stuff. I'm Corbin Hosler. I'll see you next week.